Sunday, and I am not sure the weight of that is lost on anyone. After an off-season like no other brings us an opening day like no other. You're looking at FedEx Field where the Eagles are taking on the Washington football team. A place that normally has a huge Eagles crowd is going to have no crowd at all, but we are here. We have made it. The Eagles have won 8 of their last 9 season openers, most opening day victories in the NFL since 2011. Doug Peterson 4-0 in season openers, hoping to make it a perfect 5-0 today. There's your weather report from our friends at NBC 10. Low 70s and clear. What a beautiful day for some football, and we are so excited for this Eagles game. For football, I can smell the grass from here. Thanks for joining us on the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. I'm Amy Campbell, coming to you from my home. Fran Duffy holding down in the NovaCare complex in the studio. Fran, I'm about to jump out of my seat into this camera. How are you feeling today? The excitement is at an all-time high.
It's finally here, right? I mean, we waited so long for football to return here in Philadelphia. We've wet our beaks a little bit over the last couple of weekends with college football, but we've got NFL football. Training camp's been great. But you know how it is, Amy. After those first couple weeks, you're excited for live action. We didn't have those preseason games. Cannot wait for kickoff here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, I know we're not the only ones feeling it. I know the fans are feeling it. I know the players are feeling it. Let's go back out to FedEx Field and watch these guys warm up. The pads are on. The excitement is at an all-time high. There he is, Carson Wentz, going into his 5th year with a lot of excitement on this offense. Fran, what do you think about the QB1 going into year 5?
It's going to be awesome just to be able to see Carson with these weapons. And to me, one of the things to be really excited about is the return of Deshaun Jackson. We saw what he did in week 1 last year against this Washington defense. Expect more of the same here today. And then you get the addition of Jalen Reagor, the first-round pick from TCU. He was a little bit doubtful coming into the game. Was he going to be able to play with that shoulder injury that he suffered during training camp? He is active. He is a go. The big question now, Amy, is will the offensive line be able to protect Carson Wentz enough to be able to get the ball downfield to those guys on the perimeter?
That is the big question, and as we take a look at the offensive starters for today, of course, the big news, Lane Johnson will not be playing. Rookie Jack Driscoll getting his first career start there at the right tackle, and then at right guard, Nate Herbig also making his first career start. Fran, these are 2 guys making their first career starts against one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL. What can the Eagles do to set these guys up for success?
Well, we've seen this story play out before, Amy. You know, I remember last year when Andre Diller was getting ready to make one of his first starts against Chicago and Khalil Mack. We talked about it with Von Miller a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl year. The Eagles have dealt with injuries along the offensive line before, and they have found ways to be able to mitigate the rush from outstanding guys off the edge. So I think when you look at this game, what can they do to help Jack Driscoll? You could slide protection that way. Yeah, they're going to do that a bunch of times. They're going to chip Chase Young and Ryan Kerrigan and Montez Sweat with your running backs and your tight ends. For sure, that'll be a part of the game plan. But you can also obviously get the run game going. You could play action pass. You can get Carson Wentz moved out of the pocket. The screen game is going to be huge. Backfield action, all the misdirection. There are lots of things that Doug Peterson and this offensive coaching staff can do going into this matchup to help protect some of those young offensive linemen. 0 starts between Nate Herbig and Jack Driscoll. That's going to be a big aspect of this game for sure.
Yeah, definitely something to be watching. Let's take a look at the defensive starters here, and a lot, again, to break down, as always, especially the first game. There's so much excitement. But let's talk about Darius Slay, possibly the most hyped new Eagle from a storyline fan media perspective. How transformational is a shutdown corner like this to a defense?
Well, I talked about it with Eagles defensive backs coach Marquand Manuel this week on Eagles Game Plan, and I asked him, I said, what does it mean when you have a corner of that caliber that can line up anywhere in the formation and shadow the opposing team's #1 receiver like Darius Slay can do? And he just talked about it just gives you so much flexibility as a defensive play caller. So for Jim Schwartz now, you can have a guy that can erase, in theory, the opposing #1 receiver. In this game, that would be Washington's second-year guy, Terry McLaurin, who really did a number on the Eagles in both matchups matchups last season. So that's going to be a big matchup certainly to watch in this game, but it requires all the other guys to be able to pick up their end of the bargain as well. So you need Avonte Maddox to be able to move around and be versatile. Nickel Roby-Coleman in the slot, he's got to be able to do a lot of different things. Jalen Mills making his first start at safety. It's going to be a really interesting just to see how all of these defensive backs, as we can see those guys there, how they are deployed in this matchup. It's going to be a huge, huge part of this game.
Well, and you mentioned Terry McLaurin last season against the Eagles. 10 receptions for 255 yards and a pair of touchdowns in 2 games. 2 of those were big plays. And then Dwayne Haskins, now going into his second year as a quarterback against the Eagles in December, 19 of 28, 261 yards and 2 touchdowns. So guys who were able to have some production against this defense. Now we're looking at a Washington team with a new coaching staff. Ron Rivera is there. Jack Del Rio is calling the defense. And we're not totally sure what the identity of this team is going to be. What do you expect?
Yeah, I think when you look on both sides of the football, you have to go with what Ron Rivera has been over the course of his career. So you would say, okay, they're going to transition to more of a 4-3. They did dabble some in a 3-4 unit last year in Carolina, but 4-3 base, and I would imagine it's going to be heavy zone coverage. So the Eagles have to find ways to attack all the different zone coverage concepts that you've got there on the back end. It goes back to protection, though, which we talked about a little bit earlier. On the other side of the football, Scott Turner is now the full-time offensive coordinator down there in Washington, and he is Norv Turner's son, who's been an offensive coordinator for my entire life, basically, in the NFL. So he is obviously came up the son of a coach. A lot of play action. There's going to be a lot of creative design. Look for that in this game. Washington is going to throw all kinds of things at this Eagles defense with different motions, different shifts, moving guys all around the field. That's going to be a big part of their identity. Just watching them in Carolina last year, understanding the pieces that they've got in their arsenal this year, I think that's going to be what Washington's identity is on offense. It's going to require a lot of communication between some of those guys you see there on the Eagles' back seven. Everything's got to be buttoned up. You've got to be ready for anything Washington is going to throw their way.
Well, and one of the things that the coaching staff and really everyone in the building has echoed this week, and Doug Peterson, I thought, put it best when he said adaptability is going to be the name of the game this season, the name of the game when it comes to this game, adapting and in-game adjustments to what they're seeing. Here we're taking a look at the offensive line. We've got Jason Peters back at the left tackle, and that also quite a story because he came in as the right guard, and then when Andre Dillard went out for the season, he made that move to left tackle. How exciting is it to have him back at that spot? And really, Fran, actually what I should ask is how much concern is there, because even in the past few seasons, he's had some injury issues.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is when you come into the season, you're already down Brandon Brooks. You lose Andre Dillard. You move Jason Peters over. There's no Lane Johnson in this game. So the depth that you came into this year along the offensive line with is already starting to be a little bit dwindled. So, but that's why depth is so important. It's going to be really interesting to see. It's a huge task for Jeff Stoutland and this offensive coaching staff to make sure that these guys are ready. At a moment's notice, they could be called into action off the bench to be able to have to block Ryan Kerrigan and Chase Young and Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, the rest of that Washington front, which, by the way, Amy, we're, what are we, 10 minutes into the show? We haven't talked about the fact that the Eagles will be without Miles Sanders, who is inactive for this game as well. So, I mean, when you talk about how important he is to Carson Wentz and this Eagles offense, obviously both as a runner and as a pass catcher, that guy that you see on the right side of your screen there walking across Carson Wentz's face now, Boston Scott is going to be a huge part of this game. I can't wait to see what they do to get number 35 in space.
Yeah, how do you think that will affect the entire offensive production? Like you talk about Miles Sanders, this thing runs through him, his versatility in the run game and the passing game. How does that change the approach?
Well, I think when you have the amount of speed that the Eagles do have in the backfield, it helps, right? You've got Boston Scott. The Eagles added Jason Huntley off of waivers at the end of training camp. So while he's only been here for a handful of days, I'm sure he's active today. So they're going to have things set for him to be prepared to be able to play in this matchup. So when you've got that amount of speed on the field, that you can do some of those same things that you do with Miles Sanders, and you can try and project that to a Boston Scott and to a Jason Huntley. And then you've got Corey Clement as well. We know what Corey Clement can do in the passing game. So look, there's going to be a lot of quick game throws, especially early on, to really kind of check the temperature of the offensive line against Washington's defensive line. Don't let Carson Wentz hold the ball too long. See if he can get the ball out quick. the running backs, like you see there, are going to be catching some of those passes in the flat. I think that's going to be something just to keep an eye on here in the first quarter, the first couple of drives, just again to check the temperature of that O-line versus D-line matchup.
Well, one of the things that I think is going to be an interesting component to this game is we have Ron Rivera versus Doug Peterson. Of course, these guys go way back, both Andy Reid disciples, but both known for being really aggressive in interesting moments when, going for it on fourth down or trying interesting and creative things. I think this could be a really fun matchup of two guys who really like to push it when it comes to the creativity and aggressiveness.
Yeah, I mean, that's the identity of Doug Peterson, right? Is that aggressiveness. And, I think in this game, that's what, whenever you're a play caller, you're going to go into a game, and I mentioned check the temperature of the defensive line, check the temperature of the secondary. You want to try and do different things to see, okay, how is the opponent responding to what I'm doing? How are we holding up to what the defense is doing to us? So all of that is geared towards trying to set up some of those big plays. So, hey, we're going to try and run some play action. Can we hold up? Hey, we're going to try and run some deep shots. Can those guys hold up? It's going to be very interesting to see how he tries to set up some of those later plays with what he does on the first 2, 3, 4 drives.
Another aspect I want to touch on here is the defensive front against Dwayne Haskins, who is going into his second year, but this is a young and experienced quarterback, and this is an Eagles defensive line with plenty of experience. Of course, a lot of the same veteran guys are back. Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, we know very well. Malik Jackson going to be plugged in there in the middle there. So a lot of excitement, of course, Vinny Curry as well. So names we know, faces we know. How do you see their approach to making this young quarterback really uncomfortable?
Well, we've talked a lot about what's going on with the Eagles offensive line against Washington's defensive line. The tables are turned there as well. I think when you look at the left side of Washington's defensive line or offensive line on Dwayne Haskins' blind side, Jaron Christian is the left tackle making his first career start. Wes Martin is the left guard. He's only going into his third career start. So a lot of inexperience over on that side. I think the Eagles have the ability to take advantage of this matchup. You've got Malik Jackson. You've got Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. Josh Sweat really came on, especially the last couple of weeks of training camp. I think this defensive line has the ability to take over this game. But again, Washington is going to be looking to try and do a lot of the same things I talked about that the Eagles are going to try and do, right? You're going to try and mitigate that pass rush with all of those different schematic options. So to me, it's going to be an execution game for both back sevens. They've got to be able to make sure things are buttoned up and allow their defensive lines to get home. You could say the same thing about Washington that you would say about this Eagles defensive front.
Brand, we did not have a preseason. We had a shortened training camp. How much rust do you expect to see? Do you think this is going to be sloppy? And who does that give the advantage to? The defense?
That's tough to say about who gets the advantage, because I think when you look around, just looking at college football as kind of a case study, right, because everybody's going through the same thing at every level of the game. We've seen some bad tackling in some games, and that's led to big plays, but we've seen penalties as well. So, penalties have come off the board, taken big plays off the board, both on offense and on special teams. So it kind of goes both ways, and really it's going to be a matter of who can limit the mistakes and then who is able to leverage the opposing team's mistakes into big plays. That's going to be a big part, not just of this game here in Eagles versus Washington, but around the NFL, not just this week, but week 2, week 3, week 4, as everybody just kind of gets their feet under them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It's obviously something that we have never seen before, so definitely a lot to watch there. All right, we have a few more seconds to watch these guys get ready to go, and how fitting that we have Carson Wentz here, a guy who became a father in the offseason, and it sounds like it really has given him a new perspective. You haven't quite been around the team like normal, but you've been around him a little bit more closely than I have. What's your sense from Carson, just in terms of that maturity as this leader of this team, but also as a dad now?
I can speak from my own experience. That certainly does kind of change your perspective. Carson is Carson, and he is such a great leader. He's got full control of not just the offense, but of this team. Really excited just to see him in this offense with all the weapons around him. We're going to get that on display here today.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for that. Really a lot to look forward to. All right, and with that, we are now going to check in with the Eagles insider for the first time this season on this show, Dave Spadaro, holding it down from the balcony at the NovaCare complex.
Yeah.
And Dave, I heard you say earlier, I think it was on your podcast, that this is the first time you haven't been at an Eagles game since 1987. That's the year before I was born. I'm sure you're feeling strange about that. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling strange about that. What has kind of been the overall vibe as you've been talking to everyone with this unprecedented offseason heading into an unprecedented opening day?
You do what's best for the team, so you don't complain. You understand that everybody is working in very remarkable circumstances. It takes a lot of sacrifice. Many, many people in this Eagles organization have put together a plan, and you don't step out of line from that plan if you are part of the team. The goal here is to A, have an NFL season, and B, win the Super Bowl, right? So I'm not at FedEx Field. It's the first game I've missed since the strike of 1987, and that's just the way it is. I feel separated from the football team a bit today, but I've got my own team here. We're all working together. We've all got the same spirit. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Love it. We're all on the same team here. All right, Dave, what is your storyline for the Eagles in this game?
Well, the storyline kind of coincides with what you guys have talked about, but I'm going to take it to a more basic level. Let's watch the pre-snap penalties, the turnovers, the mental mistakes, first game, chaos along the offensive line. Whether you think this is normal, it's complete. I've never seen an Eagles offensive line go into a season with this much uncertainty. Jack Driscoll starting at right time, I mean, crazy. So you have to kind of dumb things down. You have to play field position. You have to play small ball. And that's what I look for from the offense. And from the defense, let's see how they tackle. We've only seen 2 days of tackling out here. How proficient will the Eagles be in the art of making the tackle?
So, Dave, with those storylines in mind, I'm interested just to get your key to this game. How do you think the Eagles come out on top?
I think the Eagles' defensive backfield is so much better with Jalen Mills, now a natural safety with Darius Slay, with Nickel Roby-Coleman. Last year, the Eagles gave up 15 passing plays of 40-plus yards. 15 in 16 games. That's terrible. So limit the big play from the Washington football team in the pass game. Make a team that really doesn't have a lot of experienced offensive talent. Make them work for every single yard that they can gain.
All right, Dave, thanks so much. So great to see you holding it down. Looks like a beautiful day there as well. We will catch up with you after the game, I'm sure.
All righty.
All right, Fran, we've got Dave's storyline, Dave's key to the game. What about your key to the game?
Yeah, and I'm going to just kind of piggyback off Dave. And I think when you're talking about those big plays, you get them off play action. Let's talk about the run game. I think with both teams, they want to be able to establish the run in this game, get things going, take some pressure off of your offensive line, any of the inexperience you've got there. So defensively for the Eagles, prevent those big plays in the run game. Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, Peyton Barber, maybe not household names, but very good skill sets. And then on the opposite side, no Miles Sanders, but with the right side of the offensive line being what it is right now with that inexperience, you've got to take some pressure off that group, let them run the football, get some success on the ground. I think having success in the run game, offensively and defensively, key in this matchup.
Absolutely. And mine is kind of the obvious one here. It's that offensive line protecting Carson Wentz and getting that run game going against this Washington defensive front that is one of the most talented in the league. 5 former first-round picks. And look, we talked about Jack Driscoll, a rookie, making his debut at right tackle. Nate Herbig at guard, making his debut. 2 young players making their debuts against one of the toughest defensive fronts that now has Chase Young, last year's number 2 overall pick, coming at them as well. Chase Young is trending as of a few minutes ago when the Lane Johnson news broke as well. And I asked Lane Johnson actually a couple weeks ago when he wasn't sure if he was going to play it or not about this defensive line and now adding Chase Young. And he said, we haven't seen the film on these guys. We're watching Ohio State film, but we're not really sure what this is going to look like, especially with a new defensive coordinator and what they're all going to look like together. So that to me is going to be the key to this one for the Eagles. So with that, we are now going to check in with a few familiar faces. Mike Quick and Merrill Reese are going to be giving us their players to watch. They're over at Lincoln Financial Field for this game. Take it away, guys.
Whenever you're ready. Opening day of the 2020 season, and we are excited. Mike, Eagles at Washington, and who is your player to watch?
So based on what I'm expecting Washington to do, And Jalen Mills at a new position, he's going to be my guy to watch. They're going to do a lot of movement pre-snap, and Jalen Mills has to be able to communicate that with the guys in front of him as well as the safeties behind him. He's my guy to watch.
There are a lot of Eagles that I'd like to watch, but the guy that they better watch on every single play is 99, the rookie from Ohio State. He's been compared with the best pass rushers of all time, and we'll see today. His name is Chase Young. Keep an eye out for Washington's Chase Young. That's it from here.
I love it. That's such a Merrill answer to say. There's so many Eagles I want to watch, but I'm going to pick somebody on the other team. Love it. Fran, I want to get your take on Mike's pick, actually, Jalen Mills. I think that's a great pick and something we didn't touch on yet, that he is making a move to that new position to safety, attempting to fill the void of Malcolm Jenkins. What do you think about his new role?
Yeah, I think when you look at Jalen Mills, you mentioned a new position, but it's only a new position at the NFL level. He did that at LSU, and he really did a nice job. And that was his senior year with the Bayou Bengals. Did a really nice job playing in a similar role where he played over the slot, he played over the tight end, he came down into the box. Jalen Mills did a nice job playing outside corner over the course of his college career, slid into the slot, then safety. That versatility was one of the things that initially attracted him to the Eagles. And I think when you look at what he's done this summer, constantly around the football, or interceptions down in the red zone. He's made plays in the flat. He's been making plays as a blitzer. He's shown up against the run. So I think when you look at Jalen Mills, I'm really not that concerned making that move. I'm really excited to see him because I feel like that's an area where he's going to thrive. So I can't wait to watch him now that the action is real, that the action is live. I'm excited to see him kind of embrace this new challenge because it's something that I've always felt he could do at a really high level.
Well, and Fran, I think one thing you and I have talked about before is the football IQ of Jalen Mills. This is a cerebral, smart football player who can break down a defense, who can break down the game like the best of them. How much of an asset is that for people who may not know that side of him?
Yeah, it's huge. I remember it was the interview that we saw with Mike Quick after his interception down in Dallas last year, where he really just broke down not just what the defense coverage was and all that, but understanding pre-snap, yeah, this is exactly what the offense was doing, and I saw exactly what they were planning to do, and I beat the receiver to the spot. I think when you're looking at Jalen Mills, certainly that football intelligence comes into play, but you also need to have that certain amount of competitive toughness. We know that he's got that. We know that he's got that confidence in himself to be able to embrace any challenge. Like I said, I can't wait to see him. I'm really, really fired up to see him matched up with Rodney McLeod, how those guys are used, because I think with Jalen, you've got even more flexibility to be able to move him into the deep end of the field as well. So the Eagles can really mix and match and use those guys almost more interchangeably than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I am so excited to see him. And another guy I'm so excited to see is Malik Jackson, who I know cannot wait to get on the field. He is in this week's one-on-one with Mike Quick presented by Pond La Hockey. Take a look at this Eagles defensive tackle who is so excited to play today.
I'd like to welcome in Malik Jackson. Malik, great to have you on, man. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
I look back at your history, and there are six seasons in a row where you didn't miss a game. How difficult was it for you last year, what you had to go through?
It was very difficult. It was a very eye-opening experience. You know, like you said, you come into football, and after you're just every year, year in, year out, in every game, especially for the last 6 years starting, you kind of just think that's what it's going to be. And then when something like that happens, it's very eye-opening. But it allowed me to find myself and recalibrate myself as far as football goes and just re-energize myself and find the complete love for it again. You know what I'm saying? So it was, I think it was a blessing in disguise.
What did you learn about yourself during this downtime when everyone's playing and you're not a part of it?
Well, one, I found out I really still love it. You know, as you get older, you just realize, dang, my body's hurting and all this. But I realized, like, man, I really love this game. But I also found out about myself. I like art, so I was able to go down to Miami for, was it Art Basel? I was able to go home and be a father to my little girl. Football season, you missed that with OTAs and then, playing in the season. So that last year allowed me just to kind of go back home and be, spend more father-daughter time. And that's what really made me enjoy it.
So that Washington football team, a new set of coaches there, so on the offensive side and defensive side, how do you prepare for a scheme when there's no preseason and you haven't seen what they plan to do? Do you go back to Scott Turner's prior coaching days at Carolina? How do you game plan for a team that you haven't seen in the preseason?
Yeah, no, I think it's hard, especially all three other teams in our division have new coaches. So it's one of those things with no preseason, not even just to see the new guys they have in there. I have a second-year guard who I'm going to go against, so not even just to see him and what he's learned and how he's grown. Like I said, as long as everybody else has the same thing, man, it is what it is. You got to go out there and you have to start fast. You have to be who you know who you are and do what you've been doing well, and that should be enough.
When you say be who you are, we didn't see enough of Malik Jackson. Please tell us what we're going to see from Malik Jackson this season.
Hard-nosed, fast, pass rushing, run stopping, all around 3 technique. My goal this year is to come back for comeback player of the year and get back to Pro Bowl status with Fletch and the other guys on the D-line. So those are my goals, and me telling you my goals should show you where I'm at.
Speaking of Fletch, I know you spent some time at his ranch over the offseason. Tell me a little bit about that, because, you're a big 6'5", almost 300-pound man. They tell me you're afraid of little bugs.
Yeah, I'm from the city, man. We don't have big bugs and tarantulas and bigger spiders and snakes rolling around where I'm from, So it's just different. I'm not used to that. But I got used to it. I want to stop calling myself a city boy and start getting into nature. You know what I mean? But, just a few things make me nervous in the wild, But I'll get used to it.
So time like that, having an opportunity to spend time away from the game with your fellow defensive linemen, how do you think that helps you guys as a unit?
I think it helps us a lot. First, for me, coming off an injury, being able to put myself back in a football situation to see how my foot does, just go out with the guys. And, we do drills or we all just do stuff and be able to size them up and be like, okay, he does that. That's how his ankle goes. Okay, cool. If my foot can do that, then I'm good. That's my measuring stick. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was really good, like I said, coming off an injury and just, me being gone a lot last year, just being around the guys again, letting them know who I am, how I rock, and all that, and getting back in form with them. Blessings to Fletch for doing that, man. He's a great leader, and that meant a lot.
Awesome. I love that interview. You can just feel the excitement of Malik Jackson, so eager to get on that field. And look, I'm so excited to see him, Fran, and I know there are a lot of guys people are excited to see this season, but I don't know if Malik Jackson has gotten as much of that preseason hype as maybe I think he deserves. Maybe it's because he was here last year, even though he only played a few snaps. But what does a healthy Malik Jackson do for this defensive line and the defense overall?
It's almost a cheat code, Amy, because I think when you look at him this summer, I would argue that he was maybe the most disruptive player on the field during training camp. And keep this in mind. We have yet to see a healthy Malik Jackson next to a healthy Fletcher Cox. Remember, Fletcher missed all of last summer. He was still kind of working his way back from his own injury. Then Malik gets hurt in week 1 against Washington. So really getting to see both these guys healthy, and especially when you add in Javon Hargrave, who was the big ticket free agent signing for the Eagles this offseason. When you add those 3 guys, no team has that level of talent on the interior along the defensive line. All 3 of these guys are very good starters. So being able to have all those guys come at offenses in different ways, it's going to be huge for this defensive front.
Well, and he mentioned there just the close relationship that he's built with Fletcher Cox, and Fletcher talked about it earlier this week, how he's been telling Malik, hey, you just gotta trust it about the recovery of that injury. And of course, both of them going through foot injuries, Fletcher ahead of him in his journey and saying, hey, you gotta trust it, but he looks like himself out there. So when we talk about Malik Jackson, let's take big picture for a second. The addition of Javon Hargrave, and then Derek Burnett also not playing today. A much improved Hassan Ridgeway, a much improved Josh Sweat. I mean, what is the potential, if everyone's healthy, of this front?
A lot of these guys have blue chip disruptor potential. I'm just excited to see this group come together under the first-year defensive line coach, Matt Burke.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. A lot to be excited about. We will be back in 30 seconds to continue the pregame show.
NBC 10 News, proving journalism matters every newscast through investigations.
He, of course, has a checkered history in Philadelphia national politics.
Holding officials accountable.
So what can businesses expect from police? I mean, will they be getting any of the items that were stolen back?
And telling the stories that matter.
I just thought that, this is how I die.
Now more than ever, journalism matters. NBC 10 News. Count on it.
The Philadelphia Eagles and Axalta Coating Systems are building a roster of all-pro teachers. Go to philadelphiaeagles.com/Axalta All-Pro Teachers to learn more. All right, as we get closer and closer to kickoff, we are so excited for this game. Fran, final thoughts for the people?
Well, we're 15 minutes away, and guess what you can get done in 15 minutes? You can save 15% or more on car insurance, Amy. That's something our listeners, our viewers need to know.
All right, Geico is the one who is giving you the deal, and that is perfect because we have 15 minutes right now before kickoff. So go ahead, get your Geico deal, 15 minutes, 15% or more. Fran, I'm going to give you a distanced fist bump here since I don't know the next time we will get to continue our pregame tradition. Let's get this W. Of course, we will be right back here to break it all down as soon as this game is over. The Eagles at the Washington football team will be right here on the postgame show presented by Rico. We will see you on the other side. Let's fly.